Thank you. Good morning. I'd like to call the County Facilities Committee meeting to order here at 9:01 a.m. on April 26th. I was told by Mr. Hajos that there would be a gentleman here regarding installation of a bench on Beach Road in Lake George. But and I want to get him up first rather than have him sit through all this stuff, but there's nobody here concerning that, is there? If not, we'll proceed with discussion and approval of minutes from the previous meeting. Supervisor Conover and second by Supervisor Stroud. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? So be it. No. Oh, okay. Thank you. All right, we will start with the airport agenda, and under action, new business, action agenda, new business. Request, close the project. Mr. Mapp, you care to speak to that?
Yes, please. So capital project H389 is a snow removal equipment building design phase of the project, which was completed a while back. As you guys are aware that we are currently in the building construction phase of the project. So we completed work with the design phase of the project and requesting it to be closed out at this time.
Very good. Motion, Supervisor Conover, second by Supervisor Thomas. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It carries. Thank you. Next, under discussion items, we have the solar farm update. Next amp was to present some plans, but I don't think they did. I'll let Robin speak to that again.
Right, so I'm going to give just a very brief update. Dallas Masters on the call today. She's requested to push her presentation back until next month. So I'll just give a very brief status update as what we have accomplished and our next steps part of the project, if that's okay with the company. Yeah. Great. We've received design plans, 90% completed, I believe, Dallas, if you correct me if I'm incorrect. Then our next step is to have the FAA conduct an obstruction environment analysis, as well as an airport analysis, airspace analysis. We should be submitting a form 7460-1, proposed notice of proposed construction and alteration at the airport, and have the various lines of the FAA conduct their reviews of the process and issue supporting determination or whatever in favor of the project or against or any kind of hazard identified.
Right.
So that's our status of the project. Dallas, is there anything else that
the other thing I'd say is that obviously we had our interconnection studies completed and we made 25% payments, locking in our spot in the queue for both the northern and southern site. We also are coming up on the 75% payments. So that's really great news. And then the only other thing I want to throw in is we just pushed it off a few weeks due to some small tweaks to the design. We had DEC out there last week to investigate the wetland on site for both the northern and southern site. So just small tweaks to our design, and I hope the plans that we have pretty much ready to go now will be really finalized and have all the details that everyone's looking for. So
we'll have those at the May meeting.
That's all right.
Good, thank you. And the FAA is where in their evaluation?
Once we submit the forms, they'll start that process.
Okay, thank you.
And I also share the plans with our Glens Falls Pilot Association, and I opened that up to review. I've received one comment at this time. I'm not sure if anyone else has a comment.
I don't think so.
Just the pilots group has a number of concerns about not the north, but the south, where it's on the approach to runway 1. And there, again, we've seen what plans are out there, but they really don't address all of the vertical and approach. There's regulation out there, very complicated, what's called TERPS, terminal procedures. It's, I believe it's 8230.3D or something. It's this incredible government speed
Right.
paperwork that addresses the clearances for the approach.
Right.
Many of you recall a number of years ago, there were some issues with some trees on the south end interfering with the ILS approach.
Right.
And this is in the same area where those trees had to come down. So there's a concern, don't have the data to back it on the pilot's part. Is it going to interfere with the ILS or the
Right.
GPS approach to one? There's an issue with the GPS for one already in that for some reason, there's something in the pattern that is not usable below 0 degrees Fahrenheit. There's some inaccuracy. I can't find why, but it's out there. So anything out there that interferes with that, we have a concern about. The other concern pilots have expressed is that obviously, based on the recent accident, 05 Tango, an engine loss. If you lose an engine into electricity and gasoline don't mix, and the concern. I realize some airports put it closer, but some more advanced ones like Lakeland, Florida have created a wider path than is proposed. Two parts of the concern.
Very good.
So these concerns.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Strinker, for bringing it to attention. And these concerns are addressed in the FAA study. So the obstruction evaluation, airport airspace analysis. Once we have those forms submitted to the FAA, they will issue the requisite information regarding the impact on the TERPs and so on. So once we get to that phase of the project, then we'll have more information regarding the impact of the solar farm.
And do a better evaluation.
Exactly. So we're just utilizing the resources of FAA to conduct their own expert analysis as opposed to the own internal county's opinion, which in my opinion is a better process.
Very, very
Any
good.
questions or concerns on this?
Supervisor Conover.
Did I hear the speaker correctly that the pilots, that the airport approach zone dimensions, they think that any structures even in proximity to that are something that are concern to them?
I think it's a concern. Again, I've tried to read that regulation.
I get it. Mhm.
But, you know, we had I don't know, half a dozen, 10 years ago, there were some not that tall trees out there. It's not almost in line with the runway. It's the area towards County Line Road, Queensbury Avenue, which is actually a little bit higher. And so some relatively short trees interfered with the ILS at one point due to TERPs. It's a margin of error they give you electronic. So I don't know the answer, but it's a concern.
Okay,
And
thank
to
you.
expand on that point, if I may,
Sure.
the regulation for the airport is a safety area of, believe it or not, only 600 feet beyond the end of the runway. That's referred to as RPZ, runway protection zone. Larger airports with larger aircraft, that can extend all the way to 1,000 feet. For the design area for this project, we have currently, without the project, 5,000 feet extending beyond the end of the runway. The project would take the final 2,000 feet, which will leave us just over 3,000 feet beyond the end of the runway, which fortunately for us exceeds what our requirement is for the project. But as I said before, once we submit those documents to the FAA for their review, we will get a better impact on the airspace aside.
Yes, Supervisor Trial.
So the FAA report that's underway or going to be underway will address Mr.
Concerns.
Stryker's.
That's correct.
And you'll be okay with that, the pilots,
Yeah,
sort of.
you know, my only concern from, and again, there's a lot of group discussion out there, so.
Sure, yeah.
Don't blame it all on me. The FAA has a habit of missing things, so whether we need, you know, we need to be very careful that the FAA addresses that. Sometimes the FAA says, okay, you know, this is okay, and then whoops, next week, oh, you need to do.
Yeah.
So we're a little bit touchy, maybe, I don't know.
I've had a fair amount of experience with the FAA.
Yeah, I
so,
understand. So,
Okay,
I guess the final part to address the second concern, crashing potentially within an electrical solar farm, potential for electrical fire mix. We've utilized a similar approach to the airport in Lakeland, Florida, in that we have a smaller pathway, unfortunately. Lakeland has 1,000 feet of pathway beyond between their solar farm
right.
installations. Fortunately for this project, we have a pathway of 150 feet, which is the width of the runway. So now we're hoping that the initial space of 3,000 feet, and if you guys have some time to come out to the airport, this is a great opportunity to extend the invitation. That's going to be our first response to runway excursions, those instances where aircraft lose power on the way on takeoff or during that takeoff roll, that they can hopefully respond in a safe manner. But the secondary option, we still have that clearway. So again, once we submit all this documentation to the FAA, they will review it and issue a bid.
All right,
But
good.
we are
So,
taking their concerns into consideration.
we've given some information on engine loss to Robin and Kevin, so.
very good. Thank you. That it? Any other questions or comments regarding this? If not, we'll move down to what's next here, the H403
Correct.
Taxiway LED project.
So for the past week, the Taxiway LED project has been ongoing. We are almost completed, just a couple of more lights that need to be changed out. But for the most part, the lights are installed, up running and working to my satisfaction at least. So I'm very grateful for the work that Baseline King and Jim King in particular has done over the past week.
Good.
Their crews. They worked overnight on Thursday to make sure that they got the project finished, and our county guys assisted with it as well. So very grateful or satisfied with the status of that project.
Excellent, very good. Any questions or comments? No. We have an additional item which you don't have on your agenda. It was a very late addition. There's this comes through the FAA, correct?
That is correct.
They're requiring some trees to be trimmed, and I'll let Robin speak to that.
Right, so similar to what Dr. Schwenker was mentioning about how trees are impacting the IFR. So runway 19 in particular, we have been notified of about 10 or so trees that are encroaching on the approach path for runway 19. Now, if we do nothing about this, the potential impact is that we would lose night IFR approach to runway 19, which would be significant, especially the business jets, the larger jets that utilize IFR approach to the airport.
Right.
We had a tight deadline of today. So we had 1.5 weeks to identify and confirm the heights of the trees. I'm very pleased to say that the guys did incredible work from our community members, giving us permission to access the areas, and especially mentioned the county's attorney's office that managed to help us acquire permission to enter a specific area just north of the airport. So I will be reviewing their report this morning and submitting my final report to the FAA later today. Now, I say all of this to say that this was the first phase of the project. The next phase is to create a hazard mitigation plan and get the ball rolling on actual trimming activities. So
Right.
I'm still working out the ballpark figure, but it may impact the airport's budget to have these trees trimmed. That's a future reference going on.
This was something that the FAA, taking a closer look at it, determined that
Yes, please, it has become a requirement.
Supervisor Conover.
Yeah, is it something that in your mitigation plan that additional navigation easements or navigation acquisitions might be a desirable thing?
I would have to work with the county attorney. We currently do have an aviation easement with the property north of the airport, just north of the county's own property. So we already have that one in place. I will still have to discuss with the county attorney if it's feasible or necessary to acquire other aviation easement. But the property owners have been very amicable so far. This is, I believe, the second time they've given us permission to access the area from our conversations. So again, going forward, we make that determination with the county attorney's guidance.
sir.
If you recall, about a dozen years ago, there was an accident in Saratoga based on a tree, and that's which cost some people money. I think the FAA since then has actually been much more attentive to trees in the troops.
Sure. Yep. Any more discussion? Not, we'll move down to referral pending items.
I think that one's for me.
That would be you, Mr. Hagels.
Good morning, everyone. I apologize I can't be there. I'm at a conference in Buffalo. And I'm kind of jealous because I was waiting to get back in that conference room. So it's good to see everybody back in there. The Rich Air T Hangar proposal, and Robin, correct me if I'm wrong, last month we met with Rich Air out there as well as their engineer, Tom Hutchins from Hutchins Engineering. There was still some snow on the ground, so they waited for the snow to melt. They did the stakeout of where their proposed T hangar would be set, because as you all recall, we had an issue with the riverine wetland, which is a federal wetland. So they now have everything staked out, and Steve just sent me an email on Friday, Steve Abbott from Rich Air. They have reached out now to Army Corps, and they're setting up a meeting that we can have with them in the field. So we'll determine based on the plans that they've drawn up and the meeting in the field with the Corps if there's any issues. If there's not, then next meeting, I'm hoping we can bring it back to do the lease agreement with Rich Air for the T hangars, and that'll get them in the process of moving to construction or getting to go into construction for those T hangars.
Very good. Any questions or comments? Questions from Mr. Hagels? Thank you, Kevin.
You're welcome.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I do. Kevin, who acts as, does the county act as lead agency under seeker relative to this?
We will act as lead agency on seeker for that, but we had to go through the process of checking with the Corps first, because I have had Rich Air do the environmental assessment form, and that's where we came up with a concern with the riverine. So if we can get some approval from the Corps, then it'll be a negative declaration on the EAF. And yes, we will move forward as the seeker lead agency.
Yeah. I mean, I think the under seeker isn't it. I mean, we prepare, or we cause to be prepared an assessment, which is what you've done. You've caused it to be prepared by Rich Air. And who did they bring in to? Did they bring somebody in, or are they going to bring somebody in to do the evaluation after the snow leaves? Is that the idea? When they've
already done that. They've Tom Hutchins from Hutchins Engineer is the engineering firm that they're using to do kind of their design and their layout, and they're also the ones that are putting or going through the short environmental assessment form. But again, we wanted to make sure first, before we even went forward with it, that the Army Corps was okay with basically the retaining wall that they're designed for the backside of this, so that they stay clear of that riverine wetland that is behind the proposed area for these T hangars.
Yeah, I guess I was just wondering who was going to flag that wetland. Who's responsible for flagging the wetland?
They are.
Okay.
Hutchins Engineering is. Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Not Mr. Lehman, were there any public comments?
Good morning, Chairman Bruno. Nothing on YouTube.
Thank you. Thank
One
you.
more thing, and Rob and I have had discussion about this too. The new T hangars, I unfortunately are on the east side. And the way the water comes off the roof made the hangar unusable for about 3 months this winter. It actually took Scott and Derek about 2 days to chip ice out enough to get the door open with these folding doors, which don't ever do those again.
Yeah.
I would just wonder if there's something that can be done with gutters, drains in the concrete now or in the deck, because literally I could not use the hangar, even ran the battery down this winter.
Who owns those hangars?
The county's hangers.
County does. So we could take a look at that, talk with Kevin.
Oh, he's waving. He's waving.
Oh, hi.
Thanks, Kevin.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Hi there. We have actually gone out and taken a look at them. I went out with Robin, and I've had the engineering staff go out and take a look at them. We're going to come up with a design. It may be a gutter system that we put in place. It's a significant amount of water and melt that comes off those buildings. So it can't be, your standard house gutter. We need something a little bit more, a lack of a better word, beefed up type of system that we're going to put on there. So we're looking at that. We're also looking at the possibility of doing some type of, say, grooved pavement or something in front of those hangars so that it pitches a little bit more of that water away. It's only on, and Robin, correct me, but for the majority of it, it was only on the east side of those hangars that it became an issue.
And exclusively those hangars. So none of the other county hangars experienced a similar problem.
Well, how
Right.
many hangars are affected?
3 currently.
3?
The last one doesn't get impacted.
It doesn't seem, but it drains off better there.
Yeah, it drains a little better there.
Okay, we'll take a look at it.
Yeah, if I heard the problem correctly, is it that the sheeting off the one roof is affecting the doors on another structure?
No, the sheeting off the
Or
roof
is
is
it sheeting off the roof and affecting the doors on the hangar itself?
that's correct.
The sun in the afternoon, snow collects on the roof and it drips off to the east where it's now in the shade. And so there was at one point that much ice there. And it gets into these folding doors and runs into the hangar, so you can't even get the rollers out.
Not good.
It was literally until spring, I couldn't use the hangar.
Well, we'll take a look at that and see what we can do.
Robin is well aware of that.
Yeah, I'm sure he is. Any other discussion? Oh, Mr. Thomas.
These are new hangars.
This is the new hangar, yeah.
Who was the engineer on that job?
Not me.
I believe it was Pastor, I believe.
That was Passero, who was the engineer for that job. And it was, I don't want to necessarily call out the engineer saying that they did something wrong. They designed the hangars that we approved. It's as Dr. Schwenker, I believe, said, it's the east side, the way it melts. The pavement in that area all is graded off, so it does run away. But when you get that melt in the afternoon, then it turns to shade. Of course, then it turns to ice. So we'll come up with a solution, and we'll get it fixed.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
Okay with that? Sort of. Anyone else? Okay, so we'll move on. Thank you, Robin. So we'll look at those issues. We'll have an update for the solar, the clear zone, and problem with the T hangar doors next meeting. Moving on to the buildings and grounds agenda. Scott, you want to speak to this, or Kevin? I don't know. The notice of intent to fill position cleaner.
I'll speak to that one. Again, it's a notice of intent to fill a position cleaner number 11 due to retirement. He retires at the end of this week. Looking to fill that position.
It's just a backfill. It's a motion. Second by Supervisor Trial. Any discussion? If not, I'm sorry. Oh, Kevin, sorry, I'm not used to.
That's okay. I just wanted to add real quick, because this will come up in Public Works as well, that we have another position to fill in there. We did add, as part of the packet, the description of the cleaner position, just in case anybody wanted to look at it. So they are included in the packets now.
Yeah, we like that. Thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Very good, thank you. Next is closure of capital project H263.
Chairman Bruner, I'll take that one. So that's to authorize and close capital project H263. This was the design and construction of the human services building. And we're going to return the remaining funds to the fund source, which is debt service, because it was a bond that was done for that. So the funds that we're returning are $11,030.56.
Thank you. Have a motion, Mr. Supervisor Trial, second Supervisor Conover. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Discussion items, work order request program. Scott, I think that you're familiar
We'll
with.
take these three.
Okay.
Work order request program is quickly approaching 2,000. It's in its entirety, working still smoothly and going well, completing them in a timely fashion.
Good.
The fleet car request program is actually probably will be at 400 requests, taken away since its inception. So that's going very smoothly right now.
Good.
Actually, as the mandates are decreasing, more people are getting out. So we're actually getting to a point now where every car is taken away every day almost. So it's actually working
Good.
very well.
Excellent.
And Countryside Adult Home update, just to give you a brief update, we just received 90% of the plans this past Friday. So there's really, we're at that state right now where we've got.
So you're going to review the plans. Kevin, do you have anything to say?
Be waving.
I don't. I was just going to say the same thing as Scott said. We received the plans on Friday. Since I went away over to Buffalo for this conference, I haven't had a chance to look at them, but I know that Scott and my senior civil engineer have them. When I get back, I'll start reviewing them as well, but I think they've already started reviewing.
Good, excellent. That's a great project. Probably overdue, but very good project. Any other questions or comments regarding these? No, if not, we'll move down to pending referrals, pending items. The first one is regarding the changes to the concrete area in front of the municipal center building. I don't know, if Kevin, you want to?
Yeah, I'll if you wish, I'll run through each one of these under the referral and pending items. So the first one, there was a lot of discussion at the last meeting that we didn't need all those parking spots. We wanted more green space. So we're just in the process in-house right now of refining those concepts, those plans. And probably next month, we'll have something back in front of the committee to let everybody review. As far as the next one, it's the jail building. Currently, Clark Patterson is working on the demolition plans. They are probably at about 40%, give or take right now. We do have the abatement plans from Atlantic Testing. And I believe I discussed last meeting that we were talking about receiving a variance. We had Atlantic put in a variance for covering the crawl space floor, whether it was going to be with flowable fill or a membrane. And one of the questions I think that came up from Supervisor McGowan was whether or not we could use spray foam similar to the insulation foam in the basement area to cover that floor, and would that be a cheaper cost? So we had Atlantic pass that question on to the Department of Labor. Department of Labor came back and basically said they are concerned based on the code 56 under abatement regulations is that you would not get a proper seal with that spray foam over that floor. There's a bunch of questions that they came back with, how will you ensure total coverage? How is that fire rated? And then their biggest concern was if anybody ever had to go in that crawl space, especially with that foam material, they would basically tear it up.
Yeah, that's my big concern as well.
Yeah, so based on our discussions with DOL, they're going to either want 100 questions asked, or they have given us the variance right now to either use the membrane or the controlled low strength material, which is the flowable fill, to put over that floor. And then with a flowable fill, I mean, you can easily get full coverage in there. And, you know, it's a lightweight concrete. So when all said and done, it's in place. There's no issues of somebody damaging it if they had to be in that crawl space to do any work. So again, the variance is in place for us to do either or, and the plans are being, the demolition plans are being completed right now by Clark Patterson. So I guess I would say if everybody's in agreement, I'm not going to pursue this spray foam any further. And we'll stick with either the controlled low strength material or the membrane type of system.
Personally, that spray foam, I can guarantee you, is the durability isn't there, and somebody gets down there to do any kind of maintenance work or anything, I'll guarantee you it gets compromised, if you will. So I personally am in favor of not spending any more time pursuing that.
Okay.
Comments? Thank you. Mr. Supervisor Trial. Okay.
All right, the next item we have on there was pertaining to the ongoing discussions with the Joseph Warren Center. We had a meeting last week with Labella. They brought a set of concept plans. We kind of went through them with our building committee. Had some comments, some concerns, some questions. Labella was taking basically all of our comments back. They were going to refine those conceptual plans and also provide us estimates for cost of work. So I'm hoping by next month that I can actually bring those updated concepts back to this committee just to kind of show them where we are. And yeah, that's where we are at this time.
Yeah, I think that I think most people will be very happy with the conceptual plans. Then the biggest hurdle is funding. But
that's correct. Yep.
But I think it's another great project if we can find the money to do it.
And then the last item I had on there was last month, you recall the gentleman, Glenn Campbell, came from the utility recovery company. And out of that meeting, it was asked whether or not we would have to go out to an RFP to have that utility kind of recovery service done for us, or whether we could just write a contract with this gentleman. So I know the last email that Julie and I had back and forth, that's in the county attorney's office right now. I'm not sure. I see Robert there. I'm not sure if he has an answer of whether or not we have to proceed to RFP. And I'm not sure if he's prepared to discuss it.
Maybe not. We'll put them in the hot seat anyway.
I actually don't have an answer. No, sorry, I don't.
Not at this
Okay.
time.
I know.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. One other item. At the last meeting, Supervisor Gerasi brought up a point that a backdrop would be appropriate for awards, but for photos, when we take photos in the boardroom. Thank you. And that is proceeding. We're going to go ahead with that because it's not that big an expense. Kevin could speak a little more to that since he's undertaken that.
So we reached out to one of our engravers that we have that we typically use to do some other work in the county. He provided us a couple different samples. One was done, Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, but like a bronze aluminum, and then the other one was done in a plastic type material. Based on the coloration of both, we determined that the plastic engraving would look much better. So basically what it's going to be is a 24-inch diameter circle with the Joseph Warren head, the symbol for the county or the seal for the county, that we would mount behind the chairman's seat in the boardroom. So Scott, probably we're a week out or a week away from having it ready.
It will be delivered next week.
Okay.
And then we can, board can determine the appropriate location for it, that sort of thing. Yes, Supervisor Conover.
Thank you. Just to, if you'd allow me to go back just one
Sure.
item. Kevin, wouldn't it be best? I mean, I don't see the doing an RFP on that utility contract. I think it would be a very simple RFP. We could do it under a best bid as opposed to high bid or low bid. It would seem to me that, that might be the shorter path here than try to figure out how to do this as a professional service sole source, but I would just put that out there. I mean, it doesn't seem to me, there must be other communities that have done this. We could get those specifications easy schmeezy and then we can move forward and we could get this done. I would just
think-
put that out as a suggestion.
County Attorney Elman is on now. And
Yeah, Larry Ellman, I jumped in. I was just listening remotely. My recommendation, having looked at the energy laws and having spoken with Julie Butler on this, is that we do an RFP for it.
Okay,
Which I think was the open question of whether or not we should proceed in that matter or not, and that would be my recommendation.
go ahead.
And my apologies to Mr. Terwilliger for not briefing him up on that issue.
Mind introduce a resolution to proceed with dispatch relative to an RFP on this matter. And let's get some proposals and let's take a look at it.
Sure. Second. Supervisor Thomas. Any discussion? Not all in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Thank you. So, as I said, we'll get the seal, use that as a backdrop for photos. I think it's a great idea. Mr. Lehman, any public comments? Okay. Moving on. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Oh, comment on that.
Sure.
Yesterday, there was pretty loud noise coming out of the wall here. Could that be on the work order?
It's going to be worked on tomorrow.
Okay.
We had to wait
What
until
is
the
it?
room was actually empty. We're not exactly sure if it's the heat pump.
Yeah.
And it needs to just be.
See, all you need to
I
do
went
is
back and
ask.
forth with Amanda and it was, we're gonna have it looked at tomorrow when the room's empty.
Okay.
Or
Great.
today when the end of the day is.
Thanks.
Yep, it's on there. It's a work order. It's actually number 1975, if you'd really like to know which work order it is.
Great. Thank you.
It's working.
Yep, it's working.
Very good. Moving on to fire prevention and building code enforcement agenda. We have Mr. Wallace here with us. Do you want to talk to? We have no action agenda, new business items. Under discussion items, we have fee comparisons. I'll let you.
Yeah, last fall when we were in dealing with budgets, the topic of increasing fees was brought up. That sometime in the spring, we'll bring back over some comparisons to, municipalities around us to see how the committee and or board wants to move forward with increasing fees. So went ahead and put that into a spreadsheet, tried
Nice
to pretty
job.
much go around the entire county areas to see where we stand. And then you guys can make a decision as to how you would like to move forward.
Good. You did a nice job with the spreadsheet.
I'll let Tracy know. Thanks.
So I'll open it up for a discussion here. Has everybody had an opportunity to review this? Yes, Supervisor Stroud.
Supervisor Bruno, the intent is to make a recommendation on to whether we should increase our fees after comparing them to others.
Correct. And I don't know if you want more time to review these, that's fine. It's nothing we have to do right away.
Do you have any recommendations?
I try to hold on my recommendations. That way we get questioned about fees. The fees are established by the board. So, I mean, if you look at stuff to the north of us, we're more expensive. Even some large communities to the south of us, we're more expensive. Certainly, Glens Falls, the town of Queensbury, Washington County, us. So I think you have to balance out the entire county as to where you want to come in at. Oh,
These are inspection fees, correct?
permit fees.
Permit fees, okay. Yes,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to say, in this discussion, there's county fees on top of the town fees. Town of Chester charges fees. So just always keep that into consideration.
good point. Good point. Thank you. Again.
We try into the philosophy that service is being provided and it should be paid for by those who need the service.
Okay.
One question for Supervisor Stroud. Is there zoning fees affiliated with building permits on top of the building permit fee?
No zoning fees per se. But you have the building permit fees. You've got your costs, but they're not fees. Then you have your attorney perhaps or an agent representing you. You've got the surveying and the agents being made up and things like that, but no. So we haven't had any complaints on what we charge for permit fees.
No complaints. So what's the pleasure of the committee? Do you want to leave it? Go ahead, Supervisor?
Yeah, I mean, I like to do a little bit each time so that we don't have to, when we don't have to move and make it a draconian thing, you know, that way people aren't as heavily impacted by this and we get where we need to go, but we do it over a period of time as opposed to doing it all at once. I mean, in the end, nobody likes to increase the fees. I mean, I asked Charles before the meeting where we were with fees. He said it was around, he did it quickly, so I don't want to hold him to this, but 253,000 in revenue off the permit fees against an operating budget of 547. So that's where we are. So about half the cost of the program is being borne by the fee structure, with the other half coming from general revenue, general taxpayer. So that's where we are presently, just
So it's about a 50-50 split,
you know.
roughly.
So for example, we could increase the 15 cents to 17 cents and still be below just about everybody else. We don't have to go to 20 or 25 cents. We could just do it by a little bit and then revisit this down the road. That would be one idea.
Supervisor Leggett, did you have a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just there's the department hitting budget pretty well on their revenue projections today.
We're above, I believe, actually, compared to most years. It's been a pretty strong start. So where we end up, I'm not sure, but we took in quite a few projects right in the beginning of the year that were some big townhouse projects. So that was a pretty big bump right at the start. So I don't know. It seems like the trend has been in the last month that large money still is spending it. Okay.
Right.
The average person seems to be holding on to more. It seems to be what the trend is. Where that goes for the rest of the year.
Right.
We'll see.
Okay.
That seems to be what the trend is right now.
Good. Yes, Supervisor Stroud.
So if you look at Saratoga Springs, they're almost in another world. If you take a look at Glens Falls, they seem to be pretty much moderate. The only exception is they don't charge for a certificate of occupancy.
Right.
I would suggest that we do Glens Falls as this kind of a medium range. It's not the highest, it's not the lowest. We keep our certificate of occupancy fee. And just adopt the same as Glens Falls charges. And then, like, it's lower than Queensbury and it will help pay for the services we provide.
Right. Glens Falls just recently took a look at their fees and made some adjustments, you know, prior to this, but to your point or whatever,
Yeah.
those fees needed some updating, if you will. So my point is it should be pretty current, the fee structure for Glens Falls.
So. Supervisor,
Yeah.
these current.
To the best of my knowledge, I didn't have an opportunity. Yeah,
2 months ago, yes. This is what's listed on their website.
yeah.
All right, there's one starting suggestion.
So do we want, go ahead, Supervisor.
I don't think this is the proper time to raise fees with inflation and I think you're gonna see a recession coming here. I don't think this is the proper time to be raising any fees.
Okay. So what's the pleasure of the committee? Do you want to just hold on this for the time being or? Supervisor Wild?
Chairman, thank you. I do agree that this should be borne by the people that are actually using the services. So I would suggest that we try to make some kind of move upward. And maybe what you can do is do some different fee structures for things like somebody that wants to do a deck or somebody that wants to use it. Something like that, or something. Create a more of a balance for people who just want to do something small. Locals. It's a lesser fee. It's higher for new construction.
So that would fall under additions and alterations, 1 and 2 family dwellings.
Correct.
Right. And
Charles, that's actually less work, right? For you.
It is, but until you get above the threshold for that 15 cents a square feet, they're all costing $50 minimum. I think a 24 by 24 garage, I think comes out to $86 for a 24 by 24 garage. That's an example. So, a small entry porch or something like that. Most of the time, they're hitting that $50, right now, $50 minimum fee. Of the square footage where the 15 cents is.
so more to your point, as far as who's paying for what, the person requiring your services, if you will, is paying about the general public is picking up part of that tab. And I guess the question is, you know, is that okay? Is it fair? What have you? Supervisor Thomas?
Well, when they do that construction project and they buy materials and pay sales tax, they're contributing to the other half of it too.
Yep. Good. Anyone else? Any other comments? Yes, supervisors.
Well, I mean, the gap is only going to widen. I mean, personnel costs are going up, healthcare costs are going up, energy costs are going up. I mean, so, you know, assuming the level of activity stays the same, the overall cost is going to continue to rise. So with that in mind, you know, I would be interested in some type of compromise if you wanted to do, say, 2 cents across the board, go to 17, like, for example, you know, 17 cents. I mean, what we're talking about at 2 cents is on 1,000 square feet is what, $20, right? And what's the cost of constructing 1,000 square feet these days?
Yeah, $30 a square foot.
Real high right now.
$200 a square foot,
Yeah, at least, we're closer to 3.
$300 a square foot. So what's
This is for
300
building
times that?
construction.
So that 1,000 square foot structure is costing $300,000. And we're concerned about adding $20 on the permit. just $20 more. I mean, it's bad enough. They got to spend 300,000. So, so when we haven't adjusted this rate in how long?
At least, I'm going to go back, we looked at it in 2018. I think we did an adjustment in 2015 and 16. They got revisited in 2018. And since then is when we made the adjustments to get to where we are right now. The one thing I will add in here is we're going to go across the board thing. I think we need to look at some individual items such as fire safety inspection fee. You know, let's think about increasing that cost. That's under that. So we place the charges for them. City Falls maybe charge for service charge. We charge for an operating engineer, but that's affiliated with a fire safety inspection. But you know, so I think instead of doing a blanket across the board, I think some of these have to be picked apart a little bit. You know, that's a fee that some businesses, that's based on the not only their sleeping units, but dining facilities, all that. I mean, some of these resorts pay $600 in fire safety inspection fees. So that my personal opinion of fire safety inspection fee, like it's a penalty for doing business. Always been my personal opinion on fire safety inspections. So, you know, some items I think you want to take.
Supervisors Trial.
If you take a look at Washington County, it's very similar to Glens Falls. I mean, it's, you know, you're almost standardizing the fees. And I can see what Super Thomas is saying. But on the other hand, the people who are getting the benefit of the inspections aren't paying for the cost of those inspections. That cost goes to everybody else. So it's a matter of where is it fairer. So I'm not proposing we raise the fees like Saratoga Springs. I'm not even proposing that you raise the fees as high as town of Queensbury. But Glens Falls and Washington County seem to be pretty similar, almost standardized. And yet I hear Supervisor Khan over 2 cents, but I think it all splits not even bother. So if you're going to try and raise some revenue to cover the costs, then I think you need to go with the city or Washington County, and they're very similar.
Thank you. Supervisor Driscoll.
Thank you, Chairman. Charles, I'm just interested what the consequences of a private individual who does a project and doesn't get any of the permits.
That's $100 minimum extra charge, or twice equal to twice the permit.
So that's the county's policy.
Yes.
So to your knowledge, do individual municipalities have their own guidelines?
I can't.
I mean, is that incorporated into your budget also?
No local zoning fees are incorporated.
Who gets that? Who gets that?
The zoning fees.
Yeah. Okay.
Not all the towns would deal with that zoning.
Right. So it's up to them to kind of police those types of activities that are going on. Because we all know that they're going on. Thanks.
Well, so do we have a proposal? Is any, or again, do you want to just hold on this for the moment?
No harm in holding it, because it's not going to be a huge loss by holding it up another month and giving everybody a chance to think about it. And there's 3 members who aren't here today.
Yeah.
So
Good
I
point.
think holding it up would be
Okay, let's, this is just for discussion anyway, so we'll take the fee comparisons and reserve any action on these until the May meeting. In the interim, people can take another more in-depth, if you will, or detailed look at these, and then at our next meeting in May, we will offer some action. Yes, Supervisor Wild.
Chairman, just one question for Charles, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Charles, what would the fees have to go to for PXO net sum for your office?
Well, if you look at last year's numbers, about 118% they need to increase across the board. That's just looking at it, a blanket across the board, we would need to go up 118%.
And that would put us in Saratoga range?
I'll probably,
Or above
I would guess about that. I mean, yeah, I mean, you take the comparison chart, yeah, you're gonna be in town of Queensbury range, plus be charging for fire safety fees, which they don't charge for. And that would include increasing fire safety fees to $150 instead of 75. So that would- It's hard, we could break it down, you know, in a chart to see where the fees would have to go to. That would be much more difficult than just saying it would be 118% across the board. I mean, we took in about $40,000, I'm gonna say, on average in fire safety fees. 625. Last year we did the most ever, 747, which was to make up for not getting into business in the code. But you know, none of the municipalities, county buildings, all that, they're all freebies. So maybe taking about 40,000 of fire safety fees. So
The fire safety is going to commercial, isn't it? Multi-unit
yeah,
dwellings.
apartment, yep, apartment buildings, commercial buildings, all that. Yep.
So that's more of a public safety issue.
It
as
is,
compared to one individual residence.
Absolutely, right. But, you know, keeping in mind churches, I mean, there's some really small churches that have some really small congregations in the northern part of the county. Right now, we have to go in there once a year and charge them $75. Have 10 people come to church once.
Exception for nonprofits.
Again, based on however.
Or we want to structure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And just again, your earlier opinion on the fire safety fees. Yeah, you had.
I've never been in favor of having those fees. They've always been one of the biggest things that we've always gotten complaints about. I mean, the guys in the field especially, you know, everybody's, keep your comments when you're out doing it, because they all know they're gonna get their $75 bill for doing business in the county.
And what is their opinion? Do you know? I'm
Not good.
right, but I mean, they're saying that a rationale would be a better term. What's their rationale?
Penalty for doing business in Warren County.
Thank you.
Piece of sheet of plywood. It used to be 35, now it's 75, isn't it?
Supervisor Wow.
Fire safety. So a small church would be the same charge as the Marriott in Lake George.
Their place of assembly in the Marriott. The Marriott would have multiple fees to go along with it because each occupancy classification is getting a bill. That's how the fee structure was set up when it was designed. So you'd have the residential part of the Marriott. If they had a big business office setting in there, that may be a separate fee. Their places of public assembly, restaurants. So they're probably getting about a place like the Sagamore, probably paying upwards. So here we do all our occupancies, they're probably paying $700.
And how long does it take you to do that?
Probably 2 days on the Sagamore property. One guy's 2 days probably there. Marriott, you can probably do in about 3 or 4 hours. you know, all the kids camps. You know, they pay a fairly large amount. Don't do the entire facilities every year. Some of them are 3-year rotation. Thanks to assembly or once a year.
Supervisor Conover.
Yeah, I mean, I've been here long enough to remember this discussion and all of these issues coming up. I see Charles shaking his head, yes, you know, and that's why these haven't been adjusted in quite some time before it even goes into the public realm, right? So that's why tend to be an advocate for, you know, modest adjustment. You know, you can put 2 cents, but I bet that's $20,000-$30,000. That's, you know, we can do the math on that, but it's not a nominal amount. And then over time, you know, you begin to close the gap. I mean, we said on 1,000 square feet on a $300,000 project, you know, 2 or 3 cents, I suppose even 5 cents, if you go 4 cents, you can, you know, you begin to, without doing it in one fell swoop. But you know, that I'm not sure what I would think about, but a modest adjustment now with the thinking that we're going to have to do something more on down the road would be something I think I could support. But I'm trying to accommodate what the concerns Frank's putting out there, which is are very legitimate concerns. Those are always our concerns, good times and bad. I mean, times that are as good in a certain respect in terms of construction. You know, we're setting some records here in terms of construction, but that, like Frank says, that's not going to last forever. It'll be a turn. So,
Supervisor Wow.
And to Frank, that if there's a recession that hits, our gap in terms of revenue versus cost is going to grow even bigger because we're not going to have as many projects. So I strongly recommend we kind of do something to kind of help this. And I'm sure our constituents aren't happy knowing that everybody's paying a certain amount to cover these costs. Especially when you're talking about big business that's coming in here and big money that's coming in here and investing in properties.
Right. So these are all good points for consideration. And as I said, I'd like to bring us back at the May meeting under an action item. You know, so we'll take action one way or another. Yes, Supervisor Thomas.
How would we do the fire safety inspections without? What's the
They're an item that is required out of the state. You know, state guidelines requires that those businesses be done on either a 1 or a 3-year rotation maximum based on the use of the building. Set the fee structure, so we have to go in there. I'm sure they've all grown accustomed, even though they may not like it, to writing the check to the county, and this is what it is. They know we're coming. There are certainly some businesses. Churches is probably the worst one because
do they all
some
meet
churches that have 10 people in them.
I mean, are there no violations?
Oh, you're always can find something, and you know, certainly, especially now with being fully staffed, or going back and checking more and more stuff that have been found. In the beginning, when Karen first put this in place, there was a lot of stuff. You know, now, so you kind of hit on all the worst items. Now you're going back, and as you go back there, you get more and more compliant. But and nobody really at this stage has an issue with us going because they're all used to it. It always has been.
Supervisor Garrity.
Yeah, on the fire inspections, the reason
why we asked for those is because a lot of the retail businesses didn't adhere to safe egress out of their stores. And if we didn't have the fire inspections and you did have a tragedy in one of these stores, you know, we're gonna be holding the bag anyways because Warren County does the fire inspections. For
Right.
most of the communities, other than town of Queensbury does their own. The reason why the fire inspections were done, a lot of it was also required by some of the fire departments at the time. So I think that is important. I listen to the costs sometimes, you know, I forget how the fee structure was set up for fire protection, but I'll tell you right now, I go buy some retail establishments right now, and if we didn't have that inspector out there to kind of go in once a year and remind them to keep their aisles open, and you're gonna have a tragedy, and then you're all gonna wish you had the inspection, and that's why we put it as part of our short-term rental inspections before they get a permit. In the town of Warrensburg, we have building codes go in and inspect the short-term rental to make sure, and they have to adhere to what the codes will allow them to do. So I understand the cost, I get that, but I do think on the fire inspections, it's really important to keep them up, but maybe if you want to adjust the fee schedules, Charlie, I can remember when they started, the poor guy was about mooned. He had a tough time getting going, but it's really because the retail establishments didn't follow the codes. And they would plug their aisles, and then if you ever had a tragedy, people aren't gonna make it out. And $700 is gonna be pretty cheap if you ever had a lawsuit.
I agree. I know personally, having gone into a number of establishments over the years, it's aggravating to me to go and try to go out and a door and it's locked. It's an exit door. I mean, to me, it's unconscionable, but for whatever reason, the establishment wants to control ingress and egress through one doorway, maybe to control shopping. I don't know, but again, firsthand, it's very irksome to the ones that do violate that. You know, what do you value more? Your loss of some product or human life? Anyway, that's my spiel. Just a question. So the fire safety inspection fee is $75 per occupancy classification. I don't quite get that. In other words, you have one occupancy classification here and one here. You're saying that if there are multiple occupancy classifications in a building, then it's $75 each.
Right.
And if my occupancy classification is E1 or something, and that's for the whole building, then it's just $75.
Right.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? So we'll bring this back at the May meeting as an action item. Everyone agree? Thank you. Other than that, any comments, Mr. Lehman?
Hello, Chairman Bruno. No, there's nothing on YouTube as of now.
Thank you. That being said, I guess we'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Supervisor Strauss, second by Supervisor Conover, all in favor? Thank you very much.